Nelson Mandela said, "There are no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats children." I want you to think about whether the United States treats its children fairly, and if not, how does that reflect on us as a country? With current events, you might think that most children of child sex trafficking come from foreign countries. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. Child sex trafficking is a homegrown problem and can happen right next door in your quiet neighborhood. Certain risk factors contribute to child sex trafficking. As you hear the story of a young girl placed into foster care after a previous experience with child sex trafficking, I want you to imagine that she is your relative, maybe even your daughter or granddaughter, re-victimized time and time again by the same people entrusted with her safety and well-being. This ultimately led to her being placed with yet another sex trafficker. I want to remind you that child sex trafficking happens right here in Indiana, not just in big cities with high crime rates. Abuse happens anywhere, often spawning in the family home, leading to DCFS removing children and placing them in foster homes. Today, we will be looking at the prevalence of foster care youth as child sex trafficking victims. There are risk factors leading to foster care, such as verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. DCFS will remove these children and place them in a variety of different foster care options. The first being with family, called kinship placement. The second being in residential treatment facilities. And the third being with licensed foster care homes. As we look at the slide on the screen, we're going to discuss risk factors in a couple of different situations. Relationship risk factors in families can include conflict, disruption, and dysfunction, sometimes leading to future sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. Individual risk factors include prior experience of abuse, neglect, and mistreatment, runaways, homelessness, and being thrown away, previous experience in the system being juvenile justice, criminal justice, and foster care, and experience of stigma and discrimination. In 2023, a case involving a 16-year-old girl in Chicago was shown in the media. She had been placed with a 24-year-old foster father. Chicago DCFS had approved him to be a foster father despite him being a 3-time convicted felon. He had recently been released from federal prison with charges of armed robbery and possession of firearms. How did this happen? Were there background checks even done? A child psychologist recommended that she be placed in a residential facility for treatment and to avoid further abuse. During her year-long stay with her foster father, she was beaten, abused, shot, raped, and sex trafficked. Authorities later described him as a pimp. A child is trafficked for sex when they are involved in an exchange where anything of value, money, clothing, a place to sleep, drugs, is traded for a commercial sex act. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported in 2021 that 1 in 5 children missing from the child welfare system were victims of sex trafficking. Why is this? Every child placed in foster care has experienced some sort of trauma before the placement. They are often shuffled from home to home, school to school, and from doctor's office to doctor's office, making it difficult for them to form relationships with individuals entrusted with their care that are mandated reporters. They often see themselves as a paycheck for the system. Sometimes foster families are only in it for the money. In 2013, Ortiz Wallerk Pettigrew addressed Capitol Hill with her story of foster care and sex trafficking. She reported that every foster family she had lived with had told her that they only wanted the stipend from the state. When children are used to being financially exploited, sexual exploitation is not a foreign feeling to them. Children's brains are not fully developed until they are 25 years old, so suffering abuse over and over again might make them think that that is normal. Every year, 100,000 minors are trafficked for sex. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported in 2016 that 1 in 6, or 18,500 runaways, had been sex trafficked. 86% of those children had been confirmed to be in foster care. In the same year, the Connecticut Child Welfare System reported that 86 out of 88 child sex traffic victims were in foster care. Foster care has been described as a pipeline to prostitution. In 2014, President Barack Obama passed the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act as a way to identify at-risk youth. This gave foster parents authority and power to make decisions for their foster children's daily living. Couldn't this be seen as dangerous? Because who is supervising those decisions? Are they continually doing background checks on the foster families? The bill also stated that it is required to report missing children within 24 hours to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the FBI National Crime Information Database. Why do we even need a bill to report them missing? Every year, there are many missing children from the child welfare system. Where are they going? They are likely trafficked versus being protected by those entrusted with their safety and well-being. The same risk factors that lead to foster care lead to child sex trafficking. DCFS has the power of where they're going to place these children and who is going to be responsible for them. Are they doing the screenings and supervisions they are supposed to be doing? Who is checking that they are? Sex trafficking perpetuates the cycle of abuse. Perhaps these children will one day move on to abusing other children. It is up to us to be advocates for these children and fight for government reform to address these safety concerns and hold all involved accountable. Are there any questions? Shelley, you got a question? You look like you might.
I'm just thinking
Or
of a
comment.
lot of things. Comments maybe more
Okay.
than, yeah, DCS has too much power and no accountability.
Yeah, which we know that without all of the statistics and
Sure.
stuff. You hear about it all the time. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
They don't follow up on things.
Mhm. Yeah.